Hello there ladies and gentlemen, today we kick off our 4-week long look at the 4 roles of tournament PvP with some near point defence. On Wednesday we will be looking in depth at how to build for near point defence, how to perform the role, but today we're sticking to the schedule and we have a special look at a near point defence ranger build and some gameplay. So this ranger build is something of my own invention and it's something I'm predicting is going to see some buffs in the near future. We saw mentioned recently on a forum post from one of the developers that they are looking at buffing the ranger in certain areas, and some of the things mentioned in that are things featured in this build. So keep an eye out for this. It could be something that's going to become very strong in the near future, or very similar builds could become quite important. It's based on stuff that was quite popular back in the betas. It's kind of died out a little bit since then, but it's still alright to play. And I didn't want to cover guardians or necromancers, which are two of the best professions for near point defences. That's more well known about. But yeah, we're going to cover a little bit on that on Wednesday, but today we'll just be looking at this ranger build. So first up, weapons wise, we've gone with a sword and dagger in one weapon set, and then the greatsword in the second weapon set. This is pretty much all about all these evading skills. You've got a number 2 there, the number 3, and the number 4 on the sword dagger combo all give us evasion for a few seconds, so a huge amount of damage mitigation when you also factor in the dodging. Over on the greatsword you also get a dodge on your third attack with the greatsword, which is fairly effective, and some pretty alright power skills to get a reasonable amount of damage. Not huge, but you get a little bit of damage at the greatsword that you can really rely on just to slowly whittle down someone's HP if you can mitigate enough damage to stay in the game for long enough. So for our heal, we've chosen to go with Healing Spring. It's creates a spring that heals you and your pet, and also your nearby allies, and cures conditions on allies on a pulse. It also grants regeneration on that same pulse, so a lot of healing in there, some regeneration, but the pulse is the key part of this, and we'll go into that later when we talk about the traits. For our spirits, we've gone with for the utility skills, we've gone with 3 spirits: Frost Spirit, Stone Spirit, and Sun Spirit, granting us increased damage, some more protection uptime, and some burning, as well as some solid CC on the activations, giving us chilled in there and blindness to get some damage mitigation, and also the cripple and immobilization on the Stone Spirit. Lastly, for our elite skill run with the Spirit of Nature, this grants us healing to all nearby allies as well as all these other spirits. It will also cure conditions on nearby allies and revive anyone on activation. Really powerful elite skill there, especially if you're buffed up in the spirit lines like we are. For our pets, we've gone with a wolf, which has a fear on activation, as well as the dog, which grants us intimidating howl for immobilization. So for our armour, we decided to run with runes of Melandru, increased toughness in there, and also reduces the condition duration and stun duration on you by 25%. Really helpful. The stun duration isn't really massive because not many stuns really last that long, but the condition duration is huge from that. 25% makes a massive difference. Many of them tick over for over 4 seconds, so you're definitely triggering in there and getting rid of a whole second worth of it. We don't have a huge amount of condition removal, so that's the main reason we chose that. Gives us a little bit more defense as well. For the weapon sets, we've gone with the greatsword of Hydromancer. So the Hydromancer grants freeze to nearby foes for 3 seconds when you swap to it. So we're just getting a little bit of damage mitigation in there, increasing the cooldown on their abilities. For the blade, we've gone with leeching, and then for the dagger, we've gone with energy. Energy gives us endurance back when we swap weapons, and the blade of leeching gives us a little bit of health as well on our first attack with the sword. For our amulet, we went with the PvP Soldier's Amulet and Soldier's Jewel, giving us power, toughness, and vitality. The vitality and toughness are obviously really important in surviving, and that power just gives us just enough killing power to finish people off. You could possibly build a little bit more supporty. You can maybe try to get some condition damage in there perhaps, and go with like a healing power rune, healing power amulet, sorry. But yeah, this is the best one I could find anyway, for the toughness and vitality given out of it anyway. It gave us quite a bit of HP, so we're up to 25k there, or just under. Anyway, it's still got a fair amount of power as you can see, and yeah, vitality and toughness are pretty high, so fairly solid build all round. So as far as our traits go, we went 0, 10, 30, 30, 0. 10 points in skirmishing, giving us swiftness when we swap weapons, and some great vigour uptime from the second ability. 5 seconds of vigour when you're struck by a critical hit, only triggers once every 15 seconds. This can give us at max a 33% extra vigour uptime, a huge boon. We're going to figure up a lot with this boon, especially because so many roaming builds are crit based. When they come over, we're going to have that up nearly all the time. Wilderness Survival, increased endurance regeneration by 50%, so that and combined with that is giving us even more endurance regeneration, and then we gain vigour when we use a heal. Now this is where the Healing Spring comes in handy. When you trigger Healing Spring, it works on a pulse like I mentioned before. And this will continually stack this vigour. As you can see it now slowly building up. We're getting up to 5 seconds. It's going to stay on us now throughout fight. So it will stay on us for 15 seconds while it's still pulsing, but then it will stay on us for a little bit longer as well, even once it's faded. As we can see now, we get 8 seconds left over of it constantly ticking in. A really powerful way to keep some figure uptime there. You're combining that with primal reflexes to get it up even more, and it's a huge amount of endurance regeneration, especially when it's coupled with a 50% extra, so we're getting a massive amount there, and we can dodge a huge amount, which kicks in with the second one, where we gain protection for 2 seconds on a dodge roll. We've got so much abilities to dodge, we've got so much endurance regeneration, we can dodge roll a lot more, so we can get protection uptime a lot more. Some great synergy coming in from those abilities. Gain regeneration for 5 seconds when you suffer bleeding, poison or burning, giving us some good regeneration uptime. Deal 5% extra damage when your health is above 90%. Not really a massive boon, it helps out slightly. You and your pet take 30% less damage when under 25% HP. Really helpful here. You can swap this out if you prefer. For the next one, pets periodically take conditions from you. I would recommend swapping that out depending on what the enemy is pushing at you. This is when you can really mix up for your playstyle quite effectively. If they're sending at you condition-based builds, you want to be running with Empathic Bond. If they're sending you power-based builds, run with Bark Skim. Nature Magic 30 points, giving us game regeneration when your health reaches 75%, a bit more regeneration uptime kicking in there. Spirits have twice as much health, so we're buffing up all of our utilities and elite. Any boon you get is shared with your pet, which is helpful but not really massive. Spirit bonuses have a 15% better chance of providing their benefits. This helps out a lot, getting these all up to 35% triggering rates. You and your pet deal 5% more damage while you have a boon. We're going to have a lot of boon uptime, so when we do that 5% more damage constantly. Spirits can move and follow you is the final trait we've gone for, so they can all move around. It's not too important really, because we're staying on point. It doesn't really matter whether they're too close to you or not, so you could possibly mix this up a little bit if you wanted to. Dodging removes blinding poison from you is a fairly effective one as well to get rid of poison if you find condition-based builds. And greatsword damage you can buff up as well if you want to be able to kick out a little bit more damage. But I just prefer going for that slightly more secure, just having them able to follow you around. It also helps if you do have to go and kill the boss on Niflheim, as that they're actually going to come with you and not stay back at the point. So now we're going to get into some gameplay and break down a few clips from different matches. So we're on the Battle of Kylo for this match, and this is a very interesting encounter. It's a 1v1 against an Elementalist. He's going to be arriving very shortly. Our elite skills on cooldown for the next 100 seconds. We had to use it quite early on in the match. Because of the way the team was set up, we lost a player before the game even started. We were 4v5, as you can see there on screen. We had to push their trebuchet quite quickly and early on, so we lost a player then. We had to actually use my elite skill to keep ourselves alive and revive my teammate. But yeah, anyway, here comes this Elementalist. So they updraft us there and knock us back, but luckily this fence here stops you from being knocked back too far. I mean, it wouldn't have knocked us much further back than that anyway, but yeah, standing your back to the fence can be really helpful. There we saw our Wolf applying some CC and knocking him down as well, which sort of stopped him from getting his full rotation off there. And we managed to easily avoid the damage that was incoming from that Dragon's Tooth, which would have hurt. But yeah, you can see now he's already below half HP, and we've hardly even been ticked. We're down to not even a quarter. Here he does a nice little move. He's using a big, powerful burst Earth skill there, which would deal a lot of damage to stack up some bleeding on us, but we just have to be forced out of the way. So he gets the control of the point down to nearly halfway. But yeah, we're easily able to just apply the pressure to him now. We get the daze in on him off the number 5 on the greatsword, and just getting that casual evasion on the number 3. He's kicked his heel in there, which hasn't done a lot, so we do now know he is completely built for power and just putting out the damage. So as long as we can avoid these dragon teeth and abilities like that, it's going to be a problem. So we saw the dragon teeth hit us full whack then, and for only 2.9k, which is very low considering this is going to be a pure power build we're fighting against here. See there, he's pushed completely off now, and we stay on point just long enough to get the it to tick back up high enough there before jumping in with the number 3 ability. But we can see he's got a teammate coming in now. We're going to enter a 2v1, which is going to cause us some pretty serious problems. We start summoning up our spirits back up. We got interrupted on one of them, but we managed to get our Earth Spirit back up nice and quickly. We're going to have to get our Power Spirit back up as quickly as possible as well. We got interrupted a second time there. The Warrior is going to cause us some serious problems. This Warrior is an axe build. They can dish out some really high damage. We're doing a good job of mitigating damage and slowly whittling down this Elementalist. Still, we got hit with an Eviscerate there in the back. Yeah, this Warrior is definitely dishing out some seriously high damage, and this is the problem. This team was down a player. We couldn't get any support coming in here. I mean, in a normal match, you would have already had someone coming over to support you here. They would have jumped in, and even if they were late, they would have jumped in now with a Fear Bomb to give a chance to revive you. But yeah, we didn't really have the full potential of having the 5v5. The 4v5 cost us basically this point in this encounter. But yeah, A fairly interesting encounter. You can see the problem there with trying to stay on point and why this build isn't quite up to scratch compared to, say, a Guardian or a Necromancer build. But yeah, I wanted to just review it so we can talk about something a little bit different. So this first encounter is against a Necromancer, and we're on the Forest of Niflhel defending the mine at the moment. So we're opening up our greatsword at the moment. We've got 3 of our spirits up. All their abilities are off cooldown, so we can trigger them when we need them. Coming there with the number 3, just dealing a little bit of damage and applying a cripple to them so they can't run away too quickly. And then we're just opening it with the number 1, steadily dishing out some damage. It's giving us evasion on every 3rd hit, as we're seeing it kicking in there. And our pet's also dishing out some fairly solid damage to them. You can see so far we've hardly taken any damage at all ourselves, and we triggered off all our pet's abilities there to dish out a little bit more damage and apply some burning to them. Again, you can still see our HP still nice and high, and they're nearly getting down to a third of their HP. They've kicked into plague form here as well, and this is where, of course, we've got that condition duration reduction kicking in, putting those abilities off. We also kicked in our elite skill here as well, which will give us a condition removal if we ever need it against this Necromancer. So while we've been fighting them, one of our teammates seems to have gone down. Is now coming in to support us. It's just good teamwork. We've been dishing out this combat fairly effectively, duking out against this player. They haven't really pushed us too hard at all yet. You see our HP's hardly dropped at all. They've been in plague form using one of their elite skills for a very long time. They haven't even managed to kill our pets because we summoned up that elite ability to heal them back up and keep them alive. This Mesmer who's coming now is just helping us finish them off, and that's just good practice really. If they're not needed at the middle, for example, if there's not enough pressure going on somewhere else on the map, they come and help out a little bit on point. This wasn't really an organised team, this was just a pug match, so yeah, but yeah, you can see there's some combat going up at the keep at the moment. We're not managing to push it very well, but we're doing a solid job of holding down this point back here. Dishing out the damage there, and we can see them being brought down. So yeah, not really the most important of encounters there. I just want to show how the HP stays up very effectively on this build. It has really good health uptime. We should probably have done with calling up our spirits a bit earlier then as well. We should have got them back into play a bit quicker. It wasn't really required. We're summing them all up now, but yeah, it wasn't really required because we had the support of our teammate. But yeah, it's good practice to keep your spirits up as much as possible. So while we're on the Forest of Niflhel, I just wanted to cover beating bosses very quickly. It does become your role often as a near-point defender on Niflhel to be killing the bosses. Luckily in this match we're over at the mine on the red team, so it's a lot easier to kill Svanir than it is the Chieftain 1v1 I find anyway. Right, so we're encountering him at the moment. We've got all of our spirits up, but he's going to tear them up very quickly and dish out some damage to them. We saw him tearing down one there very quickly. That was our protection spirit going down, the stone spirit. But this is the point of us having the uptime on them very quickly, is they're actually on very short cooldowns once they're actually defeated, because we summoned them up quite early on before encountering, and then on 60-second cooldown that actually kicks in as soon as they're summoned, so it will even be cooling down while they're up. Letting our pet tank here is another important part. Your pets are just brilliant at it. You can just leave them and take a lot of damage. We've gotten down to half HP now. Our pet goes down. We swap them out. Should probably have swapped it out before we actually got defeated. That was a bit of a lax bit of play on our part there. Triggering the skill there to immobilise him, which isn't really going to help us too much, but it's going to stop him. There we go. He went for his rush ability, which he's not going to get off. We're saying just out of range. It's going to trigger him to aggro onto our pet, who goes for the knockdown, and we're now going to be able to finish off the boss fairly effectively. Spirits are coming back up as well, so what I would say is that the bosses will tear up your spirits pretty quickly. They've got some fairly solid close range AoE, and if you are playing one of the builds where they follow you, they will follow you up right up to them and get hit in those AoE abilities. But as a ranger, you can just let your pets tank really effectively. Other builds, of course, you have to play in different ways. If you're playing a necromancer, you should be able to condition build them very quickly, just stack up a whole lot of conditions on them, and then play fairly defensively for a few seconds just to let those conditions tick away, and it should bring them down quick enough. But yeah, I just wanted to cover that little bit of action there. So this final clip is just something I wanted to include just because it's pretty cool, and it's a little trick you can do with this build with the elite skill, which is pretty interesting. So we're being spiked pretty heavily here by the red team. We had a little encounter trying to fight over the boss. They managed to cake it, but yeah, we're getting hit pretty hard. We've got a lot of conditions on us. So we summon up our elite skill about here. And there it is kicking in. So the elite skill, when it's activated, takes a few seconds to kick in before it revives all nearby allies. We've got a cursor over it there waiting for the correct moment. We trigger it just before we go down. See us there spinning the camera, we can now watch it hit the ground and instantly revive us. So a nice little trick there to actually self-revive yourself using the elite skill. A really interesting ability you can do to give yourself basically an instant second life and stop yourself from having as many problems. So I hope you enjoyed this video in general. It's been an interesting one indeed. I'm kind of partly regret not going for a really powerful build of near point defense like a necromancer or guardian. But I'm going to cover the guardian next week anyway in the midpoint defense videos, and the necromancer we covered recently, but it's also fairly simple to understand. You just go for a Wales build and lower those down. This is something a bit more complex, and this is something I think is future proof as well, because we're going to see some buffs to this build hopefully, and yeah, it'll get stronger in the future, so hopefully we'll see people playing it around about then. We'll see some more variety on this near point defense role. So yeah, Wednesday evening we're going to be checking out a really good video. We've got some great stuff coming out, discussing all the parts of near point defense, how to build for it, how to play it and stuff like that, so don't forget to check that out. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you all very much.